Hi there, welcome to Lilly-Tree. Today we're making these quick wire wrapped earrings with a lovely drop shape. So let's get wrapping. For this project we're using 1mm diameter copper wire, which is 18 gauge, 0.4mm diameter copper wire, which is 26 gauge, 2 beads, and mine are approximately 4mm, but you could experiment with different sizes, and some ear hooks. And the tools we need are bell making pliers or round nose pliers, flat nose or chain nose pliers, wire cutters, and optionally a hammer and block. We're going to start with 2 pieces of the 1mm or 18 gauge wire that are 7 centimetres long, which is 2 3/4 inches. We'll be using one of these for each earring. So we'll take the first wire, and I'm going to use the second step on my bell making pliers, which is about 3mm in diameter. We'll curve that wire round in its centre. We can get it quite close and then bend those ends so they're even. And we'll do the same with the second wire. Now we want to take those ends and bend them around into a gentle curve so that they cross. We can make this a pleasing shape, and I'm trying to make this fairly symmetrical. And we want to make sure the bead will fit inside. Then we'll do the same with the other wire. And we can check them against each other and adjust it to make sure they look the same. And you might notice I've got the opposite wire crossing over at the top. This will give the earrings that mirror look. Then we want to make loops at the end of those wires. I'm using my 2mm step on my bell making pliers for this, but you could just pick an appropriate point on your bell making pliers. And I'm making these a drop shape rather than perfect rounds. And we just want to make sure those 2 loops are fairly even and will sit nicely on top of each other. And we can adjust the shape of that drop if we want to at this point. We can check again that the bead will fit in nicely and adjust the shape if necessary. And of course we'll do the same for the other wire. Now I'm going to hammer these wires, and I don't want to hammer them whilst they're sitting on top of each other, so I'm just going to open that drop out again a little. Now this stage is entirely optional, but it does help work harden the wires a little bit, which makes it easier with wrapping later, and you can also use it as a design feature. So we're just going to gently hammer those loops. And this will flatten them slightly too, which will help them sit on top of each other. We can just hammer down into that drop slightly. Now this does tend to open out those loops a little, so we'll close them back up again. Then reshape that wire so those loops are sitting back on top of each other again. Then we can hammer the base of that drop shape. And I'm just doing this fairly gently to work harden those wires. because that bottom curve will be covered in wrapping anyway. And once we've done the same for that second frame wire, we're ready to start wrapping. So now we're going to take our 0.4mm or 26 gauge wire, and I've got 50 centimetres here, which I expect will be enough for both earrings. And we are going to put some corset weave on this drop, but we need to get to where we've got space to do that from the bottom. So we're going to place that weaving wire where we want that corset weave to start, and then wrap around the bottom of the frame just to create a coil on that frame wire. And we're going to wrap around the base of that drop up to the opposite point to where we started on the other side. Make sure that coil's even. You can scooch it around a little bit. Now we've got our weaving wire coming down between the two sides of the frame, so we'll take it across to where we first started and wrap around that side of the frame. So we've got one wrap on that frame, then we'll take the weaving wire down through the centre of the frame and back across to the other side and wrap that once. And we just want to make sure that each of those wraps are sitting alongside the last wrap. Then we'll take that weaving wire down through the centre and back across to the other side. And we're just going to continue this weave up to where we want the base of the bead to be. And you can change this design up by putting that bead higher or lower in the drop. But I'm wrapping a total of 7 of those cross wraps. And we can now trim off that starting end of the weaving wire and check that that's where we want the bead to be. And then we want to wrap just that side of the frame up to where the hole in the bead will sit. Then we can thread on the bead and take that wire across the front of the frame. Then we're going to take that weaving wire through, so the next wrap will be underneath where that wire is coming across from the bead. Make sure that wrap's nice and tight and the bead's sitting where we want. And then we'll continue to wrap that other side down to the weaving. Then we can trim off that weaving wire and make sure that end's tucked in. Then we just need to do the same with the other earring. And this time I'm starting from the other side of the frame, so this earring will be a mirror of the first. But we'll weave it in exactly the same way, wrapping around the bottom curve, then weaving across the same number of times as before, wrapping up one side. Threading on the bead. And then wrapping back down to that weave. Then we just need to add the ear hooks to those top loops. And I think I'll leave these bright copper. So our earrings are finished. Don't forget to hit that like button if you enjoyed the video and head over to this playlist for more quick makes. Thanks for watching and I'll see you soon.